Today we're going to be rating the Calvin Klein logo, and this was requested by this user on YouTube. And Calvin Klein has been catching a lot of heat for the last 3 or so years over their logo. So today I want to dive in and talk about why they're under fire over their logo. So let's get started right now. For about the last 3 years, Calvin Klein has been updating, changing, modifying their logo almost all the time. As of this date, this is the logo that's on their website. And this is what the word mark looks like. Their icon looks like this. But you have to kind of take a step back and understand what's been going on to understand why they've been under so much fire for their logo. See, the Calvin Klein word mark used to look like this. And the icon for Calvin Klein was this CK. And it was kind of a monogram for Calvin Klein. Now, they decided to update that and they changed their monogram to this, which, is a little bit more modern, not so traditional, you might say. And in 2017, they paid Peter Saville, one of the most famous graphic designers of our day, to design them a new logo, and he gave them this logo. Now, they used this logo in 2017 for a little while, and they used this monogram with it, and now they have shifted to a lowercase version of this, so their current logo looks like that, and their current icon is still the same. Now, what's a little weird to me is that they're actually still using this original monogram in some of their clothing. I don't know if that's like a retro thing or if they're trying to bring this monogram back. I really am confused on this one because now they've got like just a bunch of stuff floating around, but even tracking this logo down on the internet was extremely hard to do because it keeps changing all the time. So why does Calvin Klein keep changing their logo? Like, what's going on? And is their current logo any good? Well, let's take a step back and talk about some fundamental design principles that are really important to understand. I want to start by talking about this monogram right here. See, this was more of a monogram for Calvin Klein as a person. In our culture, we put a greater emphasis on people's last names, their family names, than their given names or their first names. So when you create a monogram for somebody, you typically create a big letter symbolizing the family name and smaller letters for the first name and the middle name. That's basically what this was. It was about Calvin Klein as a person, and this was kind of his monogram. But what happens is, when you're a designer like Calvin Klein is, you eventually tip from person to company or person to brand. People don't really think about you as Calvin Klein, they think about Calvin Klein as a company. When that happens, your monogram becomes a logo, and whenever you're thinking about doing a monogram logo, you have to think about the way that customers perceive the company. Are they thinking about the person or are they thinking about the company? See, having a small c and a large K in people's minds, this brings more emphasis to the K, to the Klein. So now it's Calvin Klein. This is fine if you're a person and Klein is what you want people to think about, which is how you want a monogram to behave because the last name is more important. But if you're a company, you don't really want one word of your company to be more emphatic than the other unless you have a certain reason for that. So in this case, people should be thinking about Calvin Klein, the company. To combat this issue, they moved to this mark with the lowercase c and k. And this was actually a really smart move because it makes it Calvin Klein instead of Calvin Klein. Now that's one good thing about what they've done. And now I want to talk about when they approached Peter Saville, what he did to create this logo. Now, Calvin Klein's brand is super minimalist, so they leaned into this with the all uppercase word mark and then the uppercase now monogram of CK. And I want to talk for just a second about what Peter Saville did right here. When you're working with a brand such as a fashion brand where the style of the clothes is really the style of the company, you have to be very careful about overdoing it in the logo design. The reason for that is because you want to make sure that the logo can be used no matter what the industry decides to do. If for whatever reason the fashion industry went crazy and like super psychedelic patterns were the thing to do, then you would want to make sure that you didn't have a super traditional looking logo that didn't fit with the new style of clothes and fashion that Calvin Klein's trying to produce. So to make sure that the logo would be able to be used long term, no matter what the fashion industry does, he decided to go very simple with this logo. The problem is that this logo isn't unique at all. And we talk about this a lot on the channel. Your logo needs to be memorable, at least somewhat memorable to the customer. Give it some distinct feature, some sort of shock factor that will make it stick and take up a little bit of brain space up there. One of the companies that did this really well was the Apple logo, where we talked about how it's not just an apple, it's an apple with a bite taken out of it, so it's memorable to you. And if you want to watch my video on the Apple logo, check it out, I'll link it right there. But this logo is not memorable at all. It's just a font, it's just typed out. The CK monogram is boring. There's nothing distinct or memorable about this monogram. In fact, at least when they had the lowercase CK, that was a little different. It kind of caught you off guard because it was lowercase, but now with the uppercase, I don't know. I can't remember it. In fact, I'm a brand designer. Like, I'm super engrossed in the logo design world. I know everybody's logos. I watch videos and read articles and books about logo design all the time. So I know like all of the logos for everybody. But when I saw the comment and he was like, make a video about the Calvin Klein logo, I was like, all right, yeah, sure. Wait a minute. What is the Calvin Klein logo? Like, I can't even remember what it looks like. And that is the problem with this logo. There's nothing memorable about the Calvin Klein logo anymore. If you think about monograms for luxury fashion brands like Louis Vuitton or Gucci, there's something about the monogram that at least makes it a little bit unique. For Louis Vuitton, the way the L and V are overlapping, it makes it memorable to the customer because it's not just typed out, there's something there that makes them remember it. With this, there's none of that. There's nothing unique about it. So Calvin Klein had a really hard time getting this all uppercase logo to stick because there was nothing memorable about it. So what did they do? They reverted back to title case. Now the logo is again capital C, capital K, everything else lowercase. They did this because they had to try to get some of that memorability back. People were used to seeing Calvin Klein's word mark in that format, so now they had to kind of try to go back to getting people to remember that aspect of their brand because everything else is completely not memorable. Here's the thing, going simple, going minimalist, that was good. Those were good ideas. But taking away everything that made the brand memorable and then giving them nothing in return that increased the uniqueness or memorability of their company was the mistake that they made. Now they're busy trying to play catch up to reestablish some of that memorability. And I think that the answer here was actually really simple and they just missed it. Rather than constantly changing all the time, they just needed to create a monogram like Gucci, like Louis Vuitton, that was CK typed out in their font, but at least a little bit unique, just a tiny bit of something to remember it by. Whether that's cutting the letters in a certain way or maybe making them overlap, there needed to be something in this mark right here that made the brand recognizable. If they would have done that, they would have been off to the races. They would have been ready to compete with all of those luxury brands in the fashion industry. Now, obviously, I'm not as big as Peter Saville, the great graphic designer, but all I'm saying is that his recent logos, Burberry included, have lacked all uniqueness and personality. And while it's really fun to say that you got a world-class designer to create your logo, I think it's really going to end up hurting these brands in the long term because there's nothing that gives them any sort of character. Now, is this logo horrible? Are they gonna have to change it again? I don't think so. It's not bad. It's just not recognizable. So it has no memorability. I don't think that it's a good fit for them long term. I think it's gonna end up hurting them in the long term more than it will helping them. And because of that, I have to give this logo a 4.3 out of 10. I just think that there needs to be some iteration of uniqueness to this logo mark. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me about the Calvin Klein logo, and if you liked this content, you know what to do. Hit the like button. Thanks so much for joining me. Let me know what logo I should do next, and I'll see you guys in the next video.